today I want to give a presentation. I normally give this presentation in person, but with the global pandemic known as COVID-19, the coronavirus, out and about, most of my presentations these days are done via Zoom or video conference or some other form of technology. And so today we'll go through a balanced presentation that I normally would give in person. I like to give this one because it's a little bit different than some of the other approaches and information that many people would typically hear or see. So it's something different. Hopefully you'll learn something different and also get some takeaways for what you can do easily to improve your balance. And that might and it doesn't matter, right, if you can walk and you have good balance, or if your balance is a little bit on the poor side. These tips and tricks should help you improve your balance no matter where you're at. And let me introduce myself first. My name is Ben Chateau. I am a physical therapist. My area of expertise is in orthopedics and the aging adult. I have been a physical therapist since 2004. So since 2004, I have been working with people of all ages, some kids, mostly 20s and older, with my oldest client being 103. And again, most of my clientele is a more active aging adult, and that can vary from person to person and what their personal activities are. So today we're going to talk about 4 different parts of balance, right? So we'll name them here. We got number 1, strength. Do you have the strength to do whatever task you are asking your body to do? Maybe that's stand up, maybe it's walk, maybe it's squat down, whatever it is. Do you have the strength to stay upright and not fall over? Or even more than that, if you were to lose your balance, do you have the strength to recover? So if you trip or scuff your foot and you're walking and you have to take a longer step or a shuffle step, can you or do you have enough strength to actually recover from that loss of balance? So we'll talk about that, strength. Number 2, we're going to talk about our eyes. How do our eyes relate to balance, right? As a human, like we are, our eyesight is really important. It doesn't mean it's the only thing for our balance, but it is a very important part of our balance. The third thing we're going to talk about is our inner ear, right? Our vestibular system. And how does our vestibular system interact with the rest of our body, including our eyes? And then number 4, something called our somatosensory system, or our proprioceptive sensors. Basically, it's the nervous system, right? All the little receptors in our joints, our muscles, our ligaments, our tissue that's telling our brain where we're at in space. So for instance, if I had to close my eyes, I still can feel what my hand is doing, right? So that also works in my lower body, and when that's impaired, for instance, with neuropathy, that's going to affect your balance. And then what can you do about it, right? Sometimes that impairment in proprioception is not fixable. So what can we do about our balance? So let's talk about those things. So number 1, we have to have enough strength to do whatever we're trying to do, right? And being stronger is always better. So the stronger we are, the easier things are to do, right? I think we could all agree on that. There's never a time where someone just wakes up and says, man, I am just too strong. It just doesn't happen, right? The strongest man in the world, I think there was just a new world record set. He deadlifted over 1,104 pounds. It's remarkable, right? And I guarantee you he's thinking to himself, man, how can I be stronger? So nobody is ever just satisfied where we're at. And that's good, right? So that helps push us. And so we need to have that strength. But in particular for balance and mobility, what are the muscles that matter the most? Well, the ones that matter the most are called the posterior chain. That's the posterior chain, right? So it's the back half of our body. Our back extensors, our glutes, our hamstrings, and our calf muscles, as well as our quadriceps, those thigh muscles in the front. Those are the muscles that matter most when we're trying to stand up and we're trying to walk. or if we were to have a loss of balance and we are trying to recover from that loss of balance, right? So if we can improve those posterior chain muscles, we will be stronger and we will therefore have better balance. So how do we do that? Well, there's easy things to do. I'm standing up right now in my little office because I don't have that much room. I'm going to hang on to my desk here. See my hand over here? I'm just going to do heel raises, tiptoes, right? That's an easy way to make our calves stronger. We can make it harder for those more advanced by doing it on one foot. You can't see my foot, but I'm on one foot going up and down, up and down. But notice I'm hanging on because when we're strengthening, we worry about strength. We don't worry about balance, right? We're working on balance or we're working on strength. Even though they're related, we want to keep those two things separate when we're working on them. So for now, if we're working on strength, we hang on. I can do knee bends. Up and down, right? The lower I go, the harder it is. If I want to sit all the way down in a chair, come all the way up. That's my favorite exercise for people to start with. Sit to stands, all the way down in the chair, all the way back up. If it's too easy, hang on to something, right? A couple weights in your hands, hold it close to your chest, up and down. Or just do more of them. Either way, that's a good way to work your posterior chain. There's lots of other ways, and I know you guys have some access to excellent exercise videos and different things that you can look at. So just do a search or ask someone, how can I exercise my posterior chain, or how can I make my legs stronger? There's no shortage of activities, right? So hopefully that gives you some ideas, and more importantly, the why. Why does that matter? We need to keep that strength. That's important, okay? Number two, we talked about is our eyes, right? So our eyes help us visually see what's going on, but they also tell us kind of where we're at, right? So when we close our eyes or we're in a dark or a low light situation, we know our balance isn't quite as good, and that's because we're taking away one of our three major balance centers: eyes, ears, and our joint sense, right? So if our eyes are closed, we're down to two of our balance centers, and maybe the other two aren't as good, so you start to feel a little off balance. So how do we improve with our eyes? We make sure our eyewear is appropriate, right? So if you wear readers, don't wear readers when you're walking around, right? Take them off so you can see the ground better, okay? If you have bifocals, that's fine. You just have to get used to wearing them, okay? But if you're not used to wearing them, then get used to wearing them. And if you wear just readers, take them off when you're up moving around, okay? Secondly, if it's kind of dark where you're at or there's poor lighting, light it up. It's easy to see, right? Shadows, inconsistencies in the ground, things like that will affect your balance. So the more you can light it up and see where you're at in space, better. Contrast, right? So if you've got a little threshold you need to go across, and you do it all the time, sure is easier when the threshold is a different color than the other surface you're trying to walk on. So you can see it, so you can notice it. So the best thing you can do for your eyes is make sure they're seeing things as clearly as possible. So if you need to make it more well lit, great. Do you need to get new eyewear? Great. Do you need to get cataract surgeries? Fine. Anything like that will definitely help your balance, okay? Number three is our inner ear, right? So our inner ear tells us if we're accelerating, decelerating, going sideways, spinning, whatever it might be, but it's giving us that input, okay? That is very important. And the reason why that's important is because if my eyes are closed, I can still get that information, right? And if anybody's ever had vertigo where it feels like you get that spinning sensation, but you're not actually moving, it is very dangerous. Very dangerous, but easy to fix in most cases. Physical therapist can treat that. Even your primary care physician or provider can often treat that. The most common form of dizziness is something called BPPV, benign proximal positional vertigo. That's a mouthful. I can't spell it, but it will definitely make you feel dizzy, and it's common in adulthood and older age, and it's really easy to treat if you can get it diagnosed. But it is something that you should have help with because it's kind of dangerous walking around feeling super dizzy like that. It doesn't have to be a complete spin all the time. If you've had it a while, it just might feel a baseline unsteadiness or wooziness. And again, it's something you should ask your provider about and see if it can be treated. Okay? But when we get to our inner ear, we can definitely practice things that are going to improve that vestibular sense, right? Most of the time, our vestibular system works, but it's working in what we call a hypo-functioning fashion, meaning it's not working to its optimal amount. So when you do move your head, it's going to give you an exaggerated response. And that's not what we want. So maybe you've known someone, I've known lots of clients that they'll turn their head and it's like somebody actually shoved them because that exaggerated sense from their proprioceptive input. And so how do we fix that, right? Well, it's easy. And you can do it standing, you can do it sitting, we can do it on a balance pad, and we'll go over all that right now, is we start by just moving our head. We call it vestibular stimulation. Okay, so we want to stimulate that inner ear so it's not hypo-functioning, but it's giving true, accurate information. And the only way to do that is to use it. Just like your muscles are use them or lose them, your inner ear and your balance is use it or lose it. You have to always be safe. Safety first. Falling down won't help your balance, right? So for instance, I could be sitting right now and I can start with just an up and down motion. Okay. I usually recommend 5, 7, maybe 10 reps only, and then I'll go left and right. Too many reps, you'll start getting a sore neck. You want to go at a fairly brisk pace, but not like just shaking your head, but at a brisk pace, right? You can do side to side. Again, be careful of your neck. If you have any neck-related issues, you got to be careful about that. This will stimulate that inner ear, right? The more we stimulate it, the more it's going to give you the proper response when you're actually moving and looking around. A very common thing I've had happen, you're outside, you're walking, maybe you have a walker cane or not, and something catches your eye, and so you turn real quickly to look at it, and then what happens? You end up falling over, right? Because that vestibular system gives you the wrong input, and right over you go. So working on this will help. To make it harder, we can stand, and we might stand with our feet in different positions. So right now, I'm standing with my feet together, right? Side by side, I'm at attention, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm by a countertop in case I need to touch. I might lose my balance. If I want to make it harder yet, I'll stand with my feet like this, right? 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. This is the big toe. This is the heel right back here. So it's your big toe touching the side of your heel, and it's what we call a semi-tandem stance, right? So you're almost in line, but not quite. And now I'll do the same thing. If that's kind of easy, switch and put your other foot in front. Maybe it's not as easy with your other foot in front. Okay? And we just keep working on those head motions. To make it harder yet, you could be standing heel to toe. That is very hard to do, right? Heel to toe. If you want to make a different variation, great. Stand on a foam pad. There's all different kinds of balance pads these days, different densities of foam, thicknesses, variations. All of that can make a difference in how you perceive, right, where you're at. Hopefully that is making sense. And lots of variation is helpful because in real life, you might walk on grass, you might walk on gravel, dirt, carpet, hardwood, you name it, right? The surface can vary. And so we want our feet and our body to be able to handle that variation in textures, right? So when we're balancing, we can do that. Again, to make it harder, I'm back to just standing normal, kind of feet like this. And now, what if I were to close my eyes? Now, this is pretty challenging. So again, be close to a countertop. I close my eyes, and then I move my head. Now I'm engaging not my eyes anymore, now just vestibular and proprioception. Okay, so I'm down to 2 of my balance centers. Anytime you're decreasing the number of balance centers being used, it makes it harder. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The other way we can do this is integrating our eyes and our ears. Okay, so my favorite drill to do, it's very easy. Most of us have thumbs. If you don't have thumbs, that's okay. A few of my clients don't. You can use pins. You just hold a pin, right? So, or let's see. Got one right here, right? Something I can see. So I'm holding a pin, but we'll use my thumbs. I'll hold it at 45-degree angles. I'm gonna go a little narrow so you guys can see. And now what I do is I turn my head pretty quickly and I try to focus my eye right on my thumb as quickly as I can. Get that focus, right? And then I might vary the angle. So now I'm going at an oblique, up, down, up, down. Now, easier might be just to move my eyes, but maybe I want to move my head too, make it a little harder, right? Up, down, at an angle, okay? Go wider though. You want to hit kind of, not clear to the edge of your peripheral vision, but close, right? So come in from your peripheral vision, but you definitely want to make yourself move your head. And the faster you can do it and get locked in on that target, which in this case is my thumbs, the better, okay? You can do that sitting to start, and then again, to make it harder, stand. And then if it's easy while you're standing, well, that's fine. Just change your foot position. Go back to that semi-tandem stance and now try to do it. See if that makes it a little bit harder to do. Or stand on a foam pad, right? Again, when I work with clients, I have all different kinds of foam. Some's really squishy, easy to stand on. Some is really hard, easy to stand on. Some of that high density foam, not easy to stand on. And then we can just vary how we move our head, how we move our arms. There's lots of things you can do and just kind of have fun, right? Our best balance is when we were kids. Why? Because we played, we had fun, we were always challenging it. Now we have common sense, so we don't do things that are dangerous. We always want to have safety first, being by a corner. So if you can get into the corner of a wall, close to a countertop, close to a railing when you're practicing these things. That way, when you lose your balance, and you will likely lose your balance, you can easily catch yourself, right? We don't want to take risks with these kinds of things. All right, so now let's talk about proprioception, or that joint awareness, that joint sense, right? Basically, it's my body, my muscles, my joints telling me where I'm at in space. There's a lot of reasons why this might be different for people. Maybe you've had a total knee replacement. Guess what? You don't have a regular joint anymore. It's plastic and metal. No nerve endings, right? No nerve endings means no sensation from that area to the brain. That's why you don't have your arthritis pain anymore, but it will affect your balance. The good news is, above and below the joint, right? Above and below that knee replacement, everything still works. And so you'll be getting input from that, and with practice, your balance will be just fine. Okay, so other things besides joint replacements could be diabetes causing neuropathy, poor blood flow causing neuropathy. I've had people with nuclear exposure that's causing neuropathy, maybe medication interactions that have caused neuropathy, something called peripheral artery disease, or peripheral arterial disease. So you have bad blood supply in your legs, and bad blood supply means your nerves don't get the nutrients they need from our blood and circulatory system, and they just slowly die out over time, or they're less responsive over time. So if you're experiencing neuropathy, it's something you should talk to your physician about, because there are treatments available if it's a blood flow related problem. Maybe a stent in the lower extremity could help. Maybe you need to have compression dressings to make sure you get that blood return out of the feet, right? Because that blood and that circulation and the edema that you might get, it's just water for all intents and purposes. and water goes downhill. So it's going to end up in your foot, right? And so we need to help the body get it back up so it can circulate all the nutrients it needs. So those are just some of the reasons why you might not have the same sensations that you once did in your feet. And that matters, right? Because if you don't have good sensation in your feet, how are you going to have good balance? You're not going to be able to feel what's happening on the ground. And this is sometimes consciously, and sometimes it's subconscious, right? Your brain just knows how to interact with the ground. It's been doing it your entire life. It does it without thinking, and that's fantastic. Types of footwear can also impact this, right? If you have a real squishy shoe, like a running shoe that's really squishy, it's not going to give you the same feedback as a really hard bottom shoe, right? If you're in a high heel that has a real narrow base or a narrow heel that's kind of wobbly, well, that's going to really impact your balance way more than a nice solid flat shoe, right? Diabetic shoes are specifically designed to make sure there's space for your toes, or if you have other foot-related conditions, and have a good grip for the ground. Too much gription on the bottom of your shoe, not good. Not enough gription on your shoe, also not good, right? We want to have that perfect amount, right? And be used to it. I have more people that fall because they've changed shoes in the last day or two and they're not used to the shoes than you would actually think. So I always caution people, if you have a brand new shoe that fits significantly different, especially if it's more sticky or more gription on the bottom or less gription on the bottom, you need to be very careful and practice until your body kind of gets used to, okay, that's the way this shoe fits, and then you're fine. So ways to improve your proprioception, firstly, is anything that you can do to improve your blood flow, right? So if you've got bad circulation, we got to improve that blood flow. Is there something your physician can help you with? Is there something that you can wear, like a compression garment? Exercise in general increases blood flow, right? And then you can start to see that improvement and that feeling inside in your lower legs. And you can't really underestimate how important that is. If you are suffering from any type of neuropathy, you know how much that affects your balance. So if there's anything you can do to improve it, you got to go for it, right? And the other thing we have to learn to do is compensate. The body is amazing. It can compensate in lots of different ways, okay? So if I've got a severe case of neuropathy and there's just not anything else science at this point can do for me, that's okay. So that's one of 4 different things, right? So I still can have improved strength. I can work on my eyesight, right? Maybe I need better glasses. Maybe I need to improve the lighting in the room. I can work on my vestibular system, right? So all those things can help compensate for the neuropathy in my feet. Am I still going to have the neuropathy? Yes, but if I have improved footwear, if I have better inner ear function, if I have the appropriate lighting, and if I'm stronger, I'm going to have better balance. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So sometimes we just can't fix something, right? Maybe we're eyesight impaired and we just can't fix that. That's okay, right? Because our body, our inner ear, our brain, our muscles, it will help compensate if you practice. If you're not sure what to do and you are experiencing other medical conditions that seem to be impacting your balance, then you should get evaluated either from a physical therapist or your provider and see, is there something else I can do? Oftentimes, yes, there is, right? Sometimes there's not, but that's okay. There's always ways to compensate. So I have never not been able to find something to work with a client with, right? Nobody's been so good that I couldn't offer them at least one helpful bit of advice. Most of the time it's a lot more than that, right? But the point is, there's always a way to improve where you're at now. You just have to think about it. You have to think about it in a different way and not just be set in our ways. So just to recap, balance is really important, right? Everybody wants to avoid those falls. If we're walking, we at some point will have a loss of balance. So now the question is, Can I recover from that loss of balance? So I have fallen, I've had loss of balances, everybody has, but the ability to improve our resiliency to avoid that fall is all tied to those four things: how strong I am, my eyesight, my inner ear, and my proprioception. So if you can address those four, that's easier, those four things, you will see improvement in your ability to balance, and more importantly, just to get around, to do the things you want to do, right? That's the whole point of having good balance, is to do the things you want to do without risking falling. So hopefully today this talk has kind of spurred some ideas on how we can address our vestibular system, our eyesight, our eye targeting reflex, our strength, our proprioception, how neuropathy plays into all of this, and just know it can be worked on. Everybody has potential to improve. 99.9% of the time. You just have to figure out, okay, where is the person at and what areas do we need to work towards to help them either compensate or improve their weaknesses. So hopefully that gives you a little motivation, gives you some tips and tricks, and if you want, I just appreciate everybody's time, and if you want to find out more, I also have a website called thephysicaltherapyadvisor.com. I have other information on there on how to self-treat and how to work on range of motion activities, how to do self-treatment techniques for pain and muscular dysfunction, all sorts of things. So it's a cool thing to check out. Otherwise, I just appreciate everyone's time. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.